כשהתיישבתי בכיסא של חני, הרגשתי שמשהו השתנה. הסתכלתי על המשרד, זה היה כאילו מישהו לקח תמונה והחליף לה רק את הרקע. לפעמים אני נוסעת לרחוב הירקון, עוצרת את האוטו מתחת למלון רנסנס, ומסתכלת על מכון הכושר שלהם. המכון שלהם נמצא בקומה הראשונה, והקיר המערבי שלו עשוי כולו מזכוכית. יש להם שם שורה שלמה של הליכונים שפונים לים, ובכל שעה ביום אפשר לראות שם אנשים רצים ומתאמנים על הסיבולת לב ריאה שלהם. אם הייתי יכולה סתם לשבת במכוני כושר ולהסתכל על אנשים מתאמנים, הייתי עושה את זה. אבל בדרך כלל צריך לשלם על דברים כאלה, אז לפעמים אני מסתכלת ביוטיוב. ובכל זאת אני נוסעת לשם לפעמים עם האוטו כדי להסתכל, עד שהם מדליקים את התאורה של הערב, אור כחול בוהק ונורות קטנות בגוון פנינה. אפשר לומר שבאופן כללי עצמים שזזים ביחד מוצאים חן בעיניי. עדר סוסים שדוהר בנשיונל ג'אוגרפיק, לדוגמה, או קהל שקם בבת אחת מהכיסא ומריע. כשאני מסתכלת על האנשים שמתאמנים במכון כושר, זה כמעט תמיד גורם לי לחשוב על קטטות. כל האנשים שאי פעם הכרתי היו כאלה שלא הלכו מכות אפילו פעם אחת בחיים שלהם. My name is Noa Suzanna MORAG, and I come from Israel, and I'm a writer. I write novels, I edit, and I teach creative writing. The best thing is to belong to this very big and rich heritage of this literary legacy, just to be a part of it. I feel so honored. And also I want to say that the status of literature in Israel, in the same time, literature today in Israel is kind of struggling a little bit financially, and also the publishing houses, people say that the readership is becoming smaller, but in the same time, how Israeli culture perceives literature and kind of they look up to it. And I'm happy and once again, I will say very honored to be a part of it. I think the worst is probably what I mentioned before, that the literature in Israel is really struggling financially. And, you know, it's becoming, in the same time, becoming easier to publish books in a private manner, in private publishing houses. And in the same time, harder to publish in the regular ones, the more commercial ones. And there is an inflation of books. So it's hard. We're always in a state of struggle. In the same time, you know that literature is never going to go anywhere, and it's here to stay. First of all, the variety of the scenery. In such a small place, you have a desert and the green mountains and snow and the beach and everything. It really never ceases to amaze me. And the second thing that is the best to me, my favorite, is the places where you could see coexistence. Places where the Jews and the Arabs live together, like in Haifa, for instance. And lastly, the people of Israel, their warmth and their openness. Bachelor's was actually in comparative literature and in classic studies. And when I came to study those things, I was not expecting it, but I ended up learning a lot of philosophy and critical thinking, critical theory, cultural criticism. And that really brought me into writing my first book. And I really never imagined that I would go in that road. But, and as far as now, I feel like I'm going back to more, to different subjects and things that are more historical, more psychological, maybe. The most pleasurable is probably just being able to create something that you really like. It's a sense of emotion that really makes you feel like you're connected to the world and to yourself and to your inner self. And also this self-sufficiency, the fact that I can sit alone in my room for literally days, and this thing is growing inside of you, and it's happening and it's alive, and you don't need anything or anyone. And the worst is kind of like the other side of the same coin, is the solitude of it, and also the not knowing, because you're creating something, and in the same time it's so valid and it exists, but in the same time you don't really know how it's going to look in the end, whether it's going to be actually born. I thought about that, and in the same time, I always experience this kind of like mixed emotions between, in the same time, being very private person. I have I have stage fright, and I want to like not be in the front. But in the same time, you do. You want to be heard. You want to speak out. You want to perform something to people. This literature that you're making, and I also so in the same time it exists both things in the same time. But I also thought about like the public duty and the moral compass that the writers in Israel, at least, they hold very proudfully. I thought that literature, in my eyes, really, you could say that it has a power to change people in a more personal level, but I do feel like books are not going to be the thing that changes society or brings the actual change, but it doesn't mean that the writers should not take that moral stance. And one last thing I would like to say about that is literature does have to be a moral compass, but in the same time, it should remain like a free playground that is also not, that can include things that are not moral, not PC, I think, because the freedom is so crucial for art, in my opinion. The state should definitely support literature and writers. The best model maybe is Germany. You could see people that are able to live there and make a living and create their art in a respectful manner. I think that all countries should learn maybe from this kind of model. And also, apart from supporting just the writers themselves, supporting the culture around it, like cultural literature, events, and such. This is a book by Sameh Chizar. It's called Ephraim Goes Back to Alfalfa. And I think it's a real gem. It's a book that is artistically so mesmerizing, and Sameh Chizar is one of my biggest inspirations at the moment. He's one of the leaders of Hebrew Impressionism. Also, his literature is very much it has a lot of music to it, which is something I very much appreciate, and I try to go in the same, to follow his footsteps. And also, I admire the vulnerability of his writing, which is also something that I very much I wish to do the same. I hope I can to walk in his footsteps. I've been working on a novel, and it is, I like to call it a belated coming-of-age story, which revolves around what happens when the initiation doesn't occur. And I could say I've been experimenting with stream of consciousness, so and I've been working on that for quite some time now. So that was on my desktop very much. And also what surprised me about the US and Iowa, I must admit that I am in touch with the writers that were here before me. They told me a lot about it. And so I kind of feel that I was very much prepared to this thing. And what surprised me, the relationships that I have with the other writers. I feel like I'm acquainted with American culture. I've been to the US before, so my biggest surprise was my colleagues. Thank you so much for having me. I cannot tell you how long I've been dreaming of coming here, and just sitting in this chair is a real big deal for me. So thank you.